And we're live. Hello, and welcome to another Industry Live Tuesday. I'm that Kimberly, and you'll be meeting, or I'll be introducing my guest, who's right next to me here. I didn't want to put her backstage just yet, um, but we are live today, having our second. Um, Episode of our new series called Sensitive Assumptions. And what is a sensitive assumption? Well, I'm going to leave that open to interpretation and to whatever Jeanne wishes to share with us in her experiences, because we all know perception is that person's reality. So we're here to share a story and opinion that she's comfortable with sharing, as well as I am, around the debate of iPhone versus Android, aka iOS operating systems, to Google operating systems, with a little bit of tech thrown in there. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with Jeanne today. And wherever you're watching from, which we are live on That Kimberly's Facebook page, my personal LinkedIn, and That Kimberly YouTube. So if you have a question, leave it in the comments. We'll be sure to get to it. If tell us whether you're iPhone or Android, we want to know, and then put hashtag industry live in there as well. And if you watch us on the replay, put hashtag replay and where you watched us from. That would be great. We'd love that. So without further ado, I think that only took me 2 minutes. Let's jump into this conversation, and I'm going to introduce to you our guest, Jeanne Klein. I never know which way to point.
I don't know. That way. Hi, all. Nice to meet you. I'm Jeanne Klein. Kimberly and I connected, I don't know, eons ago. And I randomly was like, hi, babe. How's life? How's it going? Let's chat. So I'm
I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Like, tell me everything. What are you doing? What have you been doing for the last year? And I'm like, I had a baby and got really busy. So I'm back. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a 20-year veteran of like the multifamily industry. Like I started way back. I was like a teenager, literally. I was like 19. So I've seen everything from, typewriters to type up leases to where we are today, and everything in between.
And
fax machines to verify employment. So fun, right? Let me fax this to your employer and wait 4 days, and then maybe you can move in this weekend. Yeah, I mean, solid, good stuff.
We love it. Yeah. We love it.
Yeah. So we've just seen a ton of tech just come across, but I think there's just been a massive explosion of tech. But it all really started with like iPhone, Android, and our lives being taken over by this little screen. So
yes. So what do you have then? I take it you're a.
So here's the thing. I was a staunch Android supporter. That's just the operating system. That was my first system. I was very used to it. And then I actually took a job. Shout out to Community Boss. I took a job with them, and they issued me like a Mac, right? I'd never used a Mac in my life.
Oh, that's hard.
Well, I didn't want to speak 2 technology languages, so I went all iPhones. So now I'm all in, and I can't go back now. And it's not because I don't want to. It's just like I can't have an Android phone and a Mac computer. It's just too hard.
Your brain just doesn't work that way,
right? It doesn't, right? It's
okay.
Really hard for me. Like I struggle to sell tech, and I'm not the techiest person, which is kind of that's how I live my life.
Well, but you're like, good for you for saying that out loud, because I do feel like that's what starts the divide, that people are not comfortable with saying, I don't know, or I cannot. Will you show me or teach me? Hashtag Google is your mother, people. Go Google it. And anything you want to learn, you can learn on the Googler.
As soon to be Bing, though, with ChatGPT.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But did you know, fun fact, now that we know what cell phone you use, did you know that Cisco owns the iPhone name?
I did not know that.
It is true, folks. This isn't actually a current. Well, Jobs just did such a great job of branding the iPod. Remember, because he had the Nano for the kids in the back that
Oh
were
my
too young to know
gosh,
what
the
that is.
iPod.
And then it became the iPod where you could hold music, and then it became the iPhone. But he did an amazing job of branding the iPhone, but Cisco already owned that name. And if you don't believe me, go Google it. But there's an updated article here from 2014. But this is actually a lawsuit article from 2007. Apple, Cisco settle iPhone trademark lawsuit. So just, want to throw that out there that, Jobs did take a lot of things. He stole things from other people, but he had to pay for this thing. He didn't steal it. He just did a great job.
It was a very expensive
branding.
iPhone. So speaking
And
of
I
Cisco,
remember,
I have an interesting story for you. I was listening to a podcast, and when you call and you get like if you call a doctor's office and you're on hold, you're trying to like figure out a bill, and it goes
yeah,
that like sound. So this was actually in someone's basement in like 1980. His friend starts working for Cisco and says, let's use this random sound. And now this sound has been heard all over the place, millions and millions and millions
Did he get paid for it?
No, he's got no rights. The guy was Tim Carlton, I believe his name.
Oh.
But I listened to this whole thing on that, and I just thought it was hysterically funny because he's like, the big question was, are you making any money off of every time someone listens to this on hold music?
No, that sucks. But
I know. He was like,
yeah.
I'd rather not, remember that I was making weird 80s music in my basement.
It happens. The things that we do back when we're bored, right? Like, but too bad he's not making money from it. Well, Jobs had to pay this time for taking the name. And Cisco, and I actually remembered Cisco launching their phone anyways. And I seen commercials that nobody was paying attention to because it was all about the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an Android. Actually, I have the number, what number is this? I think the 20 something. But I had the first iPhone, the second iPhone. And then because Apple did this very stupid move of being exclusive to one cell phone provider,
AT&T.
There we go. Yes, AT&T. It could not handle the amount of people that was on their network, and nobody was talking about that, right? That was super important. So I was using the iPhone. I was trying to use it for work, and it would hang up on people. Like literally, it would take me 10 different callbacks to complete a conversation, a work conversation. How embarrassing is that, right? Yeah. So it wasn't until the iPhone 3S something, or maybe it was a 4S, that they even got all of it right. And he launched it early because he knew Google was coming out with the Android system, right? He knew that Google was hot on his tail, and that if he didn't do something that they were, and saturate the market, because that's what he did. He did a great job of lying to us all and saturating the market, right? But now, because of the end users, everything is compatible. It doesn't always work as it should because they like to not play nice in the sandbox, but because people like you, who their work gives them, wants them to use the Macs, right? And then they have this Android, you can still sync. It just may or may not have everything the way you're used to it if you were to sync from a Mac to an iPhone, to the same operating systems, people. Operating systems means iOS, or operating system of an Android, or Windows is an operating system that really nobody uses on a cell phone anymore, I don't think. Is that cell phone? We need to Google that.
I don't know. What was the BlackBerry back in the day? Was that
I think they were their own entity. I think,
right?
Nokia. Let's Google that. BlackBerry. That's a good question.
I mean, that's a throwback, right? But I just remember that keyboard. I could just like blow it up. I did have one of those and I loved it. But that's when email was like massive. And everybody's like, let me send you an email. And now you're like, everyone I know is like, please text me, please Slack me, please instant message me, please don't clog up my or I had a manager recently that was like, yeah, I don't check my email. So not from vendor. She's like, I don't check vendor email. So if you need to connect
supplier partners, you have to use the word supplier partners on this show.
Yeah, so supplier partners. Hey, listen, I just made the
You are
transition
one
like 3
now.
years ago. I'm still in my
I
head.
know,
I'm
I know,
still I'm
I
still
know.
a property manager, right?
You're
I'm
getting there.
still
You're
a
getting there.
marketer. I'm
Yes.
still the front lines with someone screaming in my face. I'm scarred forever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I get it. No worries. Well, BlackBerry was its own operating system, it says. I think they retired. Last release was 2013 is what the Googler is saying. But yeah, it says BlackBerry OS. So they're their very own operating system. It looks like that they're trying to, from what it says, that it went from a pager to an actual smartphone device. But I think they retired them, I want to
yeah,
say.
I
I
think
don't,
they're done. They're
yeah.
done just like the
We'd
iPod.
have to
It's done
do,
too.
well, iPod still works, just so you know.
Oh,
Like,
if you have one, if you can find one. I
yes.
remember when that announcement came out, and just for like giggles, I just jumped on eBay and was like, wonder what these little vintage pieces are going for now. And they just skyrocketed, right? Because the true
Wow.
music lover doesn't really want to stream. They want all of their stuff in one place in the order that they put it in. And that was the brilliant thing about it. And then
that what it is? I never understood that, but now that makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah, the hardcore music lover that has different types. You could just really organize your musical thoughts, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
With the iPod. So iPod.
Or you could go really, really old school, like I'm a Generation Xer, and I grew up with one of my ex-boyfriends, high school sweethearts, was a DJ, and he was all about the vinyl. Before vinyl made its re-emergence, right?
Yeah.
He wanted he had his records in order, so his musical thoughts were always there whenever he needed to pick one out and play it.
I can't even find my phone or my keys or anything else. So the sheer thought that anything of it like that would be organized in my life, but that's why those people are extremely efficient, right? Me, I'd be like, it's somewhere over here.
Over there. Well,
general direction.
Yeah. Do you get frustrated when somebody asks you where something is on a phone and then shows you the phone? Are you one of those iPhone users that's like, oh my God, it's an Android, I can't help you? Are you that person?
No, because before, I was an Android user. So, but I will tell you, it is more difficult for me when I am handed a phone, because this happens to we'll be
everybody
having lunch somewhere and there's an elderly couple and they're just trying to do some things. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
give me your phone. So I'll look at it and I'll give an example. So voicemail. So with an Android, your voicemail, sometimes you have to download the app on the
yes,
you have to download the voicemail app, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'd forgotten that, and we were out and about, and this little lady's like, I just need to check my voicemail. And so I'm like thinking. I'm like, what am I missing? Yes. I'm like, what am I missing? And then I was like, oh yeah, you need the app to do the voicemail thing. And so I helped her. She was like, thanks so much. But it took me a minute to like go deep and find my Android information, because I don't use it.
Yeah.
It's like a language. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, regularly. This is very true. And certain features that even like, so for instance, social media, certain features are different on an iPhone, because I have one. I have an 8 only for recording social media stuff. And then it's different when you open it on an Android, right? Like and that has to do with the technology. And I only know that on a very high level because back in my former video girl days, we developed an app. And Android is, I believe iPhone users will pay for apps and Android users won't. iPhone is easier to get pushed through the store. Android takes longer, or vice versa. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at my notes. But that's why people usually they say it's on iPhone first and only for right now, and then they develop second for the next one. And whichever one is first, I think that's the easiest one. So it's usually, I think iPhone is easier to get your app developed and pushed through and get all the, beta tweaks and things like that than Android is.
iPhone's also very good about getting you to spend your money, because you just side click. And then like at the end of the month, you're like, what are all these tiny $2, $3 charges? I had a mom, actually, that's a great story. So I had a mom, we had gone to lunch and she's like, I just had the strangest experience with like apps or whatever. And I'm like, well, what happened? And she goes, my son was on my phone. And at the end of the month, I had like $400 in like app charges.
Wow.
And she goes, I had to figure out where they were, how to cancel everything and like figure out how to turn it off. So he wasn't purchasing, $30 here. Cause they bring up the annual subscription first, not like the monthly. So he basically purchased like 25 annual subscriptions and racked up this massive bill. And she was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's all these things that you just don't realize could happen because there's so much technology. And I find myself just kind of bumbling through it and hoping that, I learn something new every day. Like
and you have to be open. You have to be open to learning and being patient and seeking to understand. That's, why we decided to start this series, because it is something that, like, for Android users, the poll, when we did back in my former years, they said that Android users are less likely to pay even $1.99 one time or month or whatever it is, but Apple users will. They will absolutely try an app for 99 cents before an Android user will. The Android user wants it free. I don't know what, And
so are we saying that Android users are better with their money? Because I like this. I like where we're going.
I don't know, but
is that what I should be checking when people walk in the door? Do you have an Android?
Yeah. I do feel like that Androids, the way their app process work is that you can get away with having ads. Free is not always better, people. Okay.
Of
free
course.
is kind of if you're going to get a free haircut, do you really want that haircut? Right? Like, free is not the best. But when it comes to apps, a free version means there's going to be ads. There's going to be pop-ups. There's going to be stuff that annoys you. Like, I pay for YouTube Premium because I spent a lot of time doing research on YouTube, and I don't want, when I'm watching a 30-minute video, I don't watch it all in 30 minutes, but I don't want even a 15-second ad to pop up. Right?
It takes forever. You're just like, and then it takes you from your mind space, right? You're zoned in, you're listening, you know what's going on. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? Skechers shoes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then it comes back in and it takes you 2 seconds to like get back in,
Yeah.
And then you gotta rewind.
So Michael Berry says Apple Store is much stricter. Oh, thank you, Michael. About development of apps. Many more apps are, what is that? Susceptible, to viruses, backdoors through Android apps. Look at that. Well, thank you, Michael. We appreciate it.
Learning something new.
We did, right? So it's true. Like, your viruses, when it's free, it's not better, right? Like, so if I'd have known that early on, I probably would have bought more when I did have that stupid iPhone 1 or 2 and bought those apps, because some of them still, all you had to do was pay one time back then, and unless they did their updates and their upgrades, which
we live in a subscription service now. Everybody wants to sell you a subscription.
So. Well, but that's called a reoccurring. That's a whole different model of reoccurring revenue for a business to sell. FYI, 100%. Startups. Yeah. But it is.
Oh, that's my world. I live in it. I love a good subscription.
But when do you realize that, okay, so back to the whole, Android has a plethora of storage space. Well, they did before, now they're starting to charge more when you fill up your Google storage of 15 gigs. But Apple is worse. Like, you have to actually buy the phone, and then even then you don't get storage. Like, what do you do? Do you start deleting apps once your storage is full, or what?
I'm just lame, right? I don't take a million pictures. My husband does, so he probably pays for the storage. I'm just not. I live life in the moment, and so I think typically when you run out of storage, is you've got a ton of videos and a ton of photos and
apps take up storage.
Yeah, I'm the girl that, like, sometimes I'll lose my phone for like hours, and then people are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Just text my husband, Kevin." Like, I don't know, like. If it's urgent and I'm not responding, it's probably me. I've left it somewhere, or I've mentally responded to you, because I'm also really bad about that. Like, yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. So if I ghost on you and you're like, she's usually really responsive, I mentally responded to you, but I didn't actually send you anything.
Well, I'm old school that I'll just pick up the phone and call you. I'm like, I know that
I love people that call.
Like that. Yes.
I love people that call, because I want to chat. I want to.
How do you feel about not knowing someone, then they just automatically FaceTime you? Like that whole, and by the way, for all those people in the back, Google has something called Duo that's now called Google Meets that they've merged all together. So yes, there is video. You can't use the first FaceTime because that's Apple's thing, but it's video chat. You can video chat with someone, and all phones, there are multiple video chat options, right? You now even Facebook video chatting. You know, WhatsApp I think is always offered, which is owned by the Meta. You could video chat through your Instagram now. You can video chat through Snapchat. I think Snapchat might have been one of the first ones. But it's not just FaceTime, people. Okay, go ahead. How do you feel about that?
I actually, that's the one thing that I really love about the iPhone, because we live in Florida, way down south, and all of our family is all over the country. So when I was forced, we'll say forced because I was an Android girl. When we were forced to make the transition to the iPhone, I did find the ability just to connect via FaceTime with all of the relatives, and show, like, my son, for example, is almost 2. So it was nice because I don't post him on social media. I have this whole like anti-kid on social media thing. It's just my stance, because I'm like, you're 2. You don't know. You're not making your own decisions about who gets to see your likeness. And
people do steal everyone's, like, whether they're children or you're adults. There are people stealing likenesses all the time. FYI, folks, it's a real thing.
Yeah. And so it just makes me uncomfortable. So with FaceTime, like, they can see him, and I'm not having to like post my whole whatever on I've literally like freaked out on my mom a couple of times. Like, Mom, why did you post this picture? She texts me, can I post just one? I'm like, oh, fine, just one.
Well, that's a grandparent's right. Come on now.
But I'm like, just start like a picture group that's just your friends.
That's too much. How old is your mother? Really? Are you really asking her to do that?
Oh, no, she's savvy. My mom was texting before teenagers were texting. When that feature came out, she was all over it.
Wow. That's good
I think she was a better texter than me. Like, I didn't even get on that train, and she was like, this is so convenient. You know, she has 3 kids. She's multitasking. You know, she was also a 1980s like working mom, just crushing the glass ceiling.
Yeah,
of course.
Michael agrees with you. Well, I mean, kids are already on social media, Michael. So I do believe that it's your preference whether you want to put your children's images or even your own out there, right? But those little kids have developed their apps apparently that hide the kids, you know, underage. Because I think what is the now going? I don't even know. Maybe Michael, you know what the terms are. Is it 13?
It's 13
to have a social media? I think all of them are different.
Instagram is 12 or 13, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but they have apps to hide that those teenagers that shouldn't be on there have apps on their phone so they can hide it from their parents. Kids. Yeah. Oh, younger kids. Okay, got it.
What is that show? There's a show called Working Moms, right? And they're actually Canadian, which I didn't realize. You know, you get so much time off for paternity leave in Canada. Different conversation, but I just learned
another day.
So, one of the moms has one of those scandalous like teenagers, and she's looking at this fabulous account. She's got this really wholesome kid, and then her friend goes, "That's not her real like account." And the other one's like, she's smoking and drinking, and like, you know, it's like holding a gun, being scandalous. So it's just really interesting. So
So we definitely need to be mindful that it's not, perception is that person's reality, folks. And if you didn't educate your children on why you shouldn't be putting those things out there, whatever it is, because they are sitting on someone's server. Like, you know, whether you think that they disappear, they don't. Snapchat lied about that because it's sitting on their server.
I mean, I'm guilty of that. I mean, at one point in my life, I was a leasing manager. That was my thing. I loved it. I liked being on the front lines, getting in the dirty. And I would interview for leasing agents. And that's the very first thing I did, like 2009, 2010, take the resume, go and like find all of their social media accounts.
Yep.
And see what their profile picture was. Because if it was of them in a bar, I was like, I don't know. You know?
Image. Well, and now there's cloud storage, right? So Google, Android, it automatically goes to the cloud. I have a whole other story for that, folks. But iPhone, it goes to the Apple cloud, which is shared with your family network. I've heard of interesting stories of people getting things that they shouldn't have gotten from their relatives because they share an Apple cloud.
That's terrifying. Like
Well,
that is
just
just
imagine it being out there on the public network, Google, the Googler, the cloud of the Google, right? It's a real thing, people. Like if you think that those photos, if you're married or you're in a consenting relationship or whatever it is, that's your business 100%. But I'm very proud to say that there are no images of me inappropriate that I would be ashamed of my grandfather, rest his soul, or my father seeing, not even when I was of the Polaroid era, because I'm a Gen Xer, let alone putting it on, letting someone take it from their cell phone that then goes to a cloud saved, now might be texted to someone. It's a real thing, people. Don't do it.
It's just so terrifying. Honestly, I'm glad I have a boy. Like I have a son, and I'm so happy for that.
Teach him well. Teach him well.
Yeah, because when that happened, I was like, oh, I don't have to have that awkward, like, don't send random pictures of yourself to random people, please.
They don't want them, and don't send them because they'll get you in trouble.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a chat GTP for like how do you have that conversation with your kid, right?
I'm gonna put it in. If you don't get an account, send me the question. I'm gonna put it in and send you the chat GPT's response, because we will be talking about chat GPT soon, for sure. I am super excited about it, but I'm trying to be mindful of your time, and I appreciate you so much. But I do want to talk about how people can connect with you and how we can lead into, maybe you'll come back and be a guest again so we can talk about AI and what's going on in the realm of verifications and applications, because it's super important and it's not going anywhere. So tell us how people can connect with you, and learn more about what you're doing.
Sure. So my email address is on the screen. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the things. We got all the handles right down there. So the reason I wanted to get on this particular show with you is the ability to take a human look at something and take away their assumptions about that person and just use technology to present facts and data. In the current climate that we're in, I think that's the best possible solution for people that are on site, right? Because your gut's going to tell you something about an applicant. That's what we do. We verify income and ID for applicants. We just want to ensure that they're actually who they say they are, right?
Because you're held responsible, right? The on-site person is held responsible. If it goes left, right, you're the one that's going to be looked at. I mean, not literally all the time, but in your heart of hearts, you're like,
well, I mean, but no, honestly, like, because under like federal fair housing law, if you do, they can personally sue you for anything like that. They can sue the company and you personally.
Wow.
So I just remember like signing off on that way back in the day, and I was like, ooh, that's really serious. I should take this a little more. I'm just having a great time showing apartments, making people feel good. And then I was like, oh, okay, you can sue me. All right, I'll pay attention. So
it's a real thing, and I think because of the gig economy, and the way you explained it, which, without going too in depth, because then maybe that will get you to come back and talk AI and how this applies. But the gig economy has changed. People have always had side hustles. There's always been consultants, but the gig economy is just that. And it's very hard to prove, and verify your information and that you can pay the rent. I'm a double agent. I am a renter by choice, and I've worked in the apartment industry for 20 years. So I call myself, I'm a self-proclaimed double agent, and my heart goes out to those on-site people. But at the same time, when I know I am who I am, like, I'm dumbfounded when my friends tell me that there are people who skip and squat and don't pay the rent. And I was like, what? You can live somewhere for 3 months and not pay your rent? What? Anyways, different conversation, but it is frustrating. The one time that I tried to move into a place that, I was working for a very large, I'll just say their name, Reliant Energy, awesome company. I was doing consulting work. And I almost lost the apartment because the person was not very savvy at technology and I had to call in a favor to get myself approved.
Yeah. And it's because, I mean, I remember being on site and everybody's calling your name. Monday morning it was either eerily quiet or there was a million things happening.
Yeah.
And I just actually listened to Lisa Russell. She did a Multifamily Insiders, so shout out to them, webinar on fraud. And now they're doing like fraud swarms. So they come in specifically in the beginning of the month or specifically at the end of the month to try to distract you to squeak through the door. And I can honestly say, like, as a leasing manager, I only did like lease ups. That was my jam. And so I was really good at it, not to toot my own horn, but I'd have like 15 applications to process in 1 week.
Wow.
So, and if I mean, I would do my very best, but that's not something I was looking for. Right.
Yeah.
So this massive influx of fraud.
We need to talk about that.
Yeah.
We need to have a conversation.
Yeah, we do. It's insane.
And
what they have to deal with now.
Yeah. And this like AI technology, what you all are doing helps I think it helps on both ends, right? Especially if that person in the because just because you're in the gig economy doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? It just means
you're like 46% of America has some sort of side hustle. This is like a totally normal thing to have extra money, and good for you.
Yeah.
But now there's a way to show it and not have the burden on the leasing manager, the assistant manager, the property manager. It's just like, hey, here's all my information. We calculate it. Yep. Here's what it looks like.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that's needed in time. And as our we don't, not even getting into any kind of political conversation, but you just never know, in the next 12 months, where our economy is going to be. So it's definitely something that would make both sides easier, especially if they're on the up and up, right? Like I was on the up and up.
You want to be overly cautious because at the last quarter of like 2022, like leasing sort of slowed, right? And so now it's competitive to get leases. So you want to ensure that the leases that you do get are legit. There's a company out of Canada that screens a ton of people a year, and they said that 2019, they would see like 3 or 4 rental fraud applications. They have like a centralized leasing a year. Now it's like 5 or 6 a month of just fraudulent applications. But it's also to the point of the other person, it's competitive to get an apartment in some scenarios. So you need $5 more to renter to qualify, or you need just something slightly better to make you more appealing, especially in the single family space, because there's usually just an individual picking who rents their place. So I totally get it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, we will be back. I'm gonna put Jeanne on the spot and commit maybe in March to talking about AI and how AI is moving that needle and how Verifast is helping that as well, because it is a tool and a resource that for me as the renter would appreciate, because then I wouldn't have to call in a favor. I'm in the apartment industry and I usually know the place. I know someone within the company, but I don't go in hot like that at the, I want the leasing person to be comfortable and just do their job. That's all, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes,
or just have the tools to do their job. Because, I'm a big advocate for anybody that's been on site. Like we make it look easy, but it is a scene.
It is. Yeah. And especially after COVID, it's harder now more than
it's
ever.
Way worse after COVID. Like
everybody is on tilt no matter what industry you're in, but especially in any kind of customer service realm like the apartment industry.
Yeah.
And we all need to have compassion and empathy and be sensitive and not assume that something is when it's not, right? But understand that perception is our own reality. And so having the tools to clarify those things is very, very important.
Yeah, because a fraud affects the entire community, right? So it could be fraud for pets. It could be fraud for income. It could be just an unauthorized occupant that's just wrecking the whole community.
Yep.
It just kind of permeates everything if you start to see a rise in fraudulent applications. You start to see like a ton of NSF fees. Those are scary, right? You're like, okay, there's something going on. And your delinquency is, if you see your delinquency at a high, you've already lost it. Like it's to the races.
Wow.
So you have to catch those like really early signs of, and NSFs is one of those. And if you use technology and you have people logging to their banks, if you notice that like their bank has only been open for like 2 weeks, versus like a few years. Because
You mean
the
their bank
typical
account?
person,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
typical person, that bank account's gonna be active for a while with actual transactions. So yeah, there's all
Okay.
these like little tips and tricks.
Well, email if you want to know and you got questions, and you, when you're watching this on the replay, because this is live, but it is sitting on the World Wide Web forever, folks. So you can email Jeanne, or you can connect with Verifast. Just so you know, we want to make sure that you know how to connect with her and ask more questions. But she's going to come back because she's already committed. It's been recorded. So yes.
I have.
And again, if you watch us on the replay, put hashtag replay where you watch us from. Here's the link to go and follow us or watch wherever you want to watch. And if you want to be a guest, there's a link on here that you can sign up to be a guest. Or if you have questions before you do that, you can always email us at beonindustrylive@gmail.com to do that, and watch wherever you want to watch us. We're on all the channels as well, and we appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jeanne, so much for joining me today and for agreeing to come back and talk some AI with me.
Yeah.
Super excited about that. So until next week, everyone, I appreciate y'all for joining us, joining the conversation. And we remember sharing is caring, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye, y'all.